Rolling thunder.
Thunderstruck! Thunderstruck! Yeah, 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 Thunderstruck! Ooh, Thunderstruck!
Welcome to Casuals of Runeterra, episode 137. I'm your host, Ryan, here with the other host, Hetch.
What is up, everybody? It almost kind of feels weird to be at our usual thing.
Yeah, we've been hitting them with a lot of bonus content, baby.
Dude, it is a good time to be a League of Legends fan. That's all I got to say about it.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Housekeeping, let's do it. You can listen to us everywhere. Email us at podcastcore@gmail.com. Visit us at podcastcore.com. Remember, that's C-O-R for all of our info. Follow us on all the platforms because that helps us get more discoverability. And then leave a like and comment on the one that you use. But word of mouth has gotten us this far, so tell a friend to return to Monkey by listening to the Casuals of Runeterra podcast.
Oh, I hate you sometimes.
Today, we're talking about thunder. Thunder. I was girl in the middle of the rain.
Thunder.
Thunderstruck, we're talking about Volibear.
And like longtime listeners already know how excited we are to talk about Volibear. We get too amped when it's Freljord episodes. Like we should be banned from this.
Listen, we do a lot of edging here.
Oh my god.
And Freljord is one of the places where we edge the most.
I'm supposed to be the degenerate on this show.
All right, let's hop into it. You know we start with the spell as usual. Class. Why is this happening?
Hey, class is in session, all right? So I need you to stay focused. It is Clash of Giants.
Clash of Giants. And this is basically a spell that allows you to cheat out big things. What it does is 16 cost slow spell that says summon 2 random Titanic followers. I cost 1 less for each elemental spell or skill you've played this game, and it's a max of 10 for reduction.
I have problems with this card. Because you know me, I love some of like the really big game ending stuff. I love the kind of goofy cards.
Yeah.
And this one is like my problem with this card is the max of 10. Right? This has the feeling of, you know, kind of like current state of Magic the Gathering where they're too afraid to like let a card shine for like balance reasons.
Stop reading my mind. I know we've done over 100 hours. Just stop.
Just stop it. Like this, it's 16 mana, and the way you reduce it is by summoning Titan. Okay, and for the listeners, Titanic units are followers or champions with +8 health or power. So they have to have, you know, 8 or more health or power. All right. So these are the big drops, right? Like, so if you're already at a point where you can play your big drop stuff to reduce the cost of this, getting this down to 10 mana, you know, down to 13 mana to be able to like play it at the end of the game is already kind of an act of Congress. So let the card go to 0. If the game is gone long enough to where they've played 16 Titanic units and haven't won the game, I think they're allowed to play this for 0. All right, that's my only beef with the card.
Okay, understandable. And you know, we're here for the flavor, and the flavor of our Volibear cards will go directly into the bio and in the story. But it says, quote, "With his body I sculpted the mountains. With the fire of his maw I carved 1,000 fjords." And that's from Volibear himself. And he's talking about a character that we'll just get into now, which is Rond, the Magma Serpent. And I want to just call him Round Because if you're at this point, you've probably heard a story where we talked about a character named Yubbers. And
oh, I miss Yubbers.
To have a magma serpent that's this gargantuan being that's used to carve the lands, and to just say his name's Round, that would be funny to me. But no, it's Rond.
I mean, it's our show.
It is our show. That's just correct.
I mean, do you want his name to be Round? Like, and as I have said many times on this show, once we say it, it's canon.
Yeah. But Rond is a 7-cost 8/6, and he simply says, play, summon 3 Sigils of the Storm, which we'll talk about in a second. Hold on, hold your horses. He's a big dude, and he's more of a spectacle in the sense of the story, and that's where we're going to go jump right to, which says, though few still worship him, all Fjordians, or Freljordians, sorry, know the tale of the Volibear's great battle with Rond. And I'll get to how they reference the Volibear as if it's a natural occurrence, right? Because it sort of is. Long before any mortal stepped foot in the frozen north, this earth-shattering struggle formed the ridges and rivers of the tundra itself.
And like I'm not going to dive into it too much right now, but like this is going to be taking a lot from like Norse mythology.
Yep.
And I can't, like, when we get to Volibear's actual story, like we'll dive into it more. So just know that like this quote is great as if you like have read up a lot on Norse mythology. As far as the card itself, like this is one of those cards that is like I really do like, just because of like the fact that it ramps. But it's ramping on a body, and not only is it ramping on a body, it's 7 mana. So it feels fair. This is one of those cards that feels fair. There's no overwhelm on the card. There's no fury on the card. It's 8/7 vanilla that ramps. So it's like it's a fair feeling card that also is like you still got to deal with it. It's 8/6. Like that's a threat. And so I love this card.
When you talk about playing it safe, but ramping at 7 feels like it feels kind of counterintuitive, and almost as a term we like to use in our term we use in our friend group a lot to talk about an excessive thing is masturbatory. It feels that way, and don't worry, I'll come back to that term in a second.
Well, yeah, because we edge the most when we're doing Freljord stories.
There's a theme here. Let us work. All right, let us work.
But we didn't break down as far as like why it's ramping, because it summons 3 Sigils of the Storm. What's a Sigil of the Storm?
So we have a special landmark this episode, which is, as Hetch mentioned, and it has a keyword on it, stacking. Now, remember our previous term. This is not the stacking you're thinking of. We're degenerates. But this isn't the term that you're thinking about since we've mentioned masturbatory. This stacking is more complicated than that. So we won't even go into it, okay? It's a 1-cost landmark. Like he said, Rond can add to this. And the aura here says, Titanic allies cost 1 less. Destroy me when you play a Titanic ally. So it allows you to ramp, but it's finite. And you're using that resource to cast something specific. And then you either have to restack or you just end the game at this point, because like we said, you're ramping at 7.
And you know, the fact that this is a landmark, like it is going to let you like get some other stuff out like earlier than this. Like there are ways to get Sigils of the Storm before turn 7. It's just that, you know, Round likes to, you know, just really just play on that edging card as much as he can. But I this is a mechanic that I like, with the fact that it does destroy itself. Like it's not a thing where it's like you're gonna have to start learning how to play land destruction decks because ramp decks have like cheat codes. Like this is fair and balanced, and I think it's a really good way to kind of reintroduce ramp in a relatively healthy way. You know, flashbacks to, you know, beta Karma and Nifia decks. Like it's not like that. It's not like that.
And it has a lore intensive purpose here. This is when we talk about well-designed cards that are also unique, this is one of the top ones, and I'm going to go through the flavor and then explain why. In a treacherous mountain pass, a sigil hangs suspended, burning into the night. Much blood was offered to reach this point, and in signs like these, the Volibear offers both his approval and his desire for more. ... Now,
So good.
like Hetch mentioned, this sigil that builds as you play it, ultimately resulting in a destructive moment to then be rebuilt again, is something that's going to play into the cycle that is the Volibear. So let's talk about it.
Yeah. And yeah, like, and it's not just the cycle of the Volibear, because like, we'll just go ahead and like get this part out of the way. If you haven't listened to our Ornn and Anivia episodes, those are ones that I would highly suggest listening to. Like, you know, either you can listen to them after this episode, because they kind of serve as like the three spirits of the Freljord. So to say like, you know,
too.
Yes, and to say that like the Freljord cannot exist without them, like without all three of them. So the cycle of the Volibear in essence is the cycle of the Freljord itself. And that is a very important thing to note, which is why it's like, yeah, check those out. And if you have listened to those episodes, you already know, one, we are so stoked. We are so excited to talk about Volibear, all right? Or at least I am. And then secondly, that this story is going to start way, way back, all right? Just like with Ornn and Anivia, we're going way back in the history of the Freljord here, back to essentially the beginnings of the Freljord, where it was just a really frozen wasteland. And with the demigods of the Freljord, or essentially the spirits of the Freljord, Volibear is arguably the one that embodies Nordic mythology the most. So if you know a lot of like the Nordic tales, so we're talking about like the old gods of Thor and Odin, Loki, Tyr, like Volibear is, his story is going to follow that path the most. And it's not saying that Anivia and Ornn don't fit in that blanket. Like easily Anivia would probably be more along the lines of Freya, and then Ornn would be Tyr. And obviously Volibear is Thor. If you haven't kept up with Norse mythology or Marvel comics, all of those mean nothing to you. So specifically for Volibear, Volibear is much more of the spirit of war, but more specifically the spirit of just carnal violence for survival. And that makes sense as far as for being in the Freljord, which is a frozen tundra. So survival is always going to be first on the list, and it tends to be in a more violent manner. And that's one of the reasons that Volibear takes up this, you know, the embodiment of a bear. But this is before he's even taken up the bear mantle, right? Like he is still just kind of more of the spirit of the land itself. And one of the things that was very important to point out here is that at this point of the infancy of the Freljord, he's really tight with Anivia and Ornn. Like that's something that we don't really get to dive into too much with the other two stories. But it is worth noting that he has a very high level of respect for both Ornn and Anivia, and he is very tight with them. And not only is this important as far as for, like, if you know the Ornn episode, you know, what ends up happening to the three of them, but it's important for how the land itself gets shaped, because again, for the fight of survival and war, Volibear kind of takes the forefront of this, but he's not doing it alone. Anivia is encouraging him as far as like kind of guiding him where these strikes will happen. And Orn is actually arming these armies because the sparse populations of tribal people that worship the three of them are usually going to war. But obviously the ones that Volibear kind of takes most of a liking to are those of the Ursine tribe. And if you know your biology, Ursine means bear.
Seems biased.
Oh yeah. Are you sure biased and not based? Yeah. But even though that like he does take a liking to the Ursine tribe, he's not doing this by himself. Orn is actively arming these armies, and these are the first tribes that end up building the Freljord. And the story itself is really just straight up Norse mythology because, you know, as the quote from Rond, what with round. So Volibear is the one that ends up kind of crafting what the physical look of the world is in Freljord. And it's not by design, it's just violence, right? Like Rond is a threat to the Freljord, and he is the one that is tasked with taking him out, and off of his bones, the body of Rond is the mountain range of the Freljord itself. And for those who are interested with Norse mythology, that's just straight up ripped out of Norse mythology, because it is told that the mountains of the Scandinavian peninsula is formed off of the bones of Jormungand. And Jormungand being the great world eater serpent. And it is the gods that I think it is Thor is the one that actually takes out Jormungand, and it's his decaying body that builds up the land.
Also an underrated anime. I suggest you guys check it out. I'm not going to tell you what it's about, but trust me, you probably haven't heard of it. It's very good. As you were.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry.
The worst part is I'm not even surprised. This is how the Freljord is shaped, with the assistance of the demigods. And it is after the point of like where they really kind of like get things settled down that it's like they kind of sit back on their laurels, because it's like, yeah, their work is done, right? Like they've protected the Freljord, they've shaped it into the land that it is now. And this is where they really start to drift apart with their own goals, where Orn is really just focusing on his craft. Anivia is working to heal the spirit of the land. Volibear is just kind of chilling with, his Ursine tribe. He's like, I like these guys. Yeah. I like fighting. I want to keep doing that. And so all the spirits kind of drift apart from each other, and they don't really reconvene until, and I quote, the growing power of the three sisters. And I have in my notes here, wink, wink, nod, nod. So it is with the three sisters really coming up as, rising in power, that the demigods get back together, because they got to reach a decision of what to do, because the three sisters have now developed enough power to disrupt the natural balance of the Freljord. And this is really the first time that they can't truly agree on what to do. Because Anivia and Orn, like, they both kind of want to negotiate with the sisters. Anivia really taking the forefront of that argument, where Orn is kind of playing the role of Tyr here, where he wants to figure out what is the most just thing, because he doesn't think that they should just reach an accord with them outright. They've already done too much damage to the natural balance, and they have to, pay in some way. Right. Whereas Volibear is just like, no, like, go kill them. Like, this is our land. Let's just go kill them. Yeah. And Orn is like, yeah, I kind of agree with Volibear, but just we shouldn't kill them all. Like, we should punish them, but not just take their lives. Right. And this is where like they start to like break apart. And that is what leads up to the fight between Ornn and Volibear, because again, Ornn doesn't believe that they should just outright kill the sisters, but he doesn't believe that he should get off scot-free. And a part of this is because he doesn't trust that Volibear's mind is in the right state because he's been chilling with these Ursine bros too much.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind is it's their view on their existence as demigods, right? They're not ultimate gods, ultimate beings. And Volibear wants to become that, right? Like that's what he wants, control over the land. He wants to control the beings he sees as less than. Whereas Ornn and Anivia are willing to exist, but exist while the world naturally takes its own shape and the beings on it develop that shape themselves. You can think of it of a more progressive approach to something where Volibear definitely wants to conserve what he knows, and that will be what this world will be. I mean, even if you look at Celestials and the amount of power they have, when we talk about Targon, they don't interfere, right? They're powerful and they can. We see what happens when they do, but they like to watch, even in the peaks of Targon, let the humans, let the inhabitants develop their world and live their lives and just kind of watch and see how things go.
Yeah.
And we'll take a bit of worshiping here and there.
Yeah, the Celestials is actually a really good call out because when they get involved, it tends to be not a small thing.
Yeah.
Like listen to our Pantheon and Kale episode.
Those are good episodes.
Yeah,
they all are. Listen to all of our episodes. That's a
episode 1. Get back there. All right,
you get back there.
But no, that is very well said. Is because Volibear does just want the control. And one of the big things that comes out of the fight between Ornn and Volibear, we're not going to dive into it in this episode because we did our deep dive on that in the Ornn episode. So after the fight, Volibear is pissed. So he's like, you know what? I'm done with Anivia and Ornn. And he rips off his armor that Ornn made for him and for like a lot of the Ursine tribesmen. And he realizes once he's ripped off the armor, hey, I kind of feel better. So as Ornn was actually kind of, again, like these are, Ornn and Anivia wanted to maintain the balance of like the land itself. So to maintain that balance, they got to keep the crazy guy with the nukes in check. So it's like, that was a nice little nod there, but he does go out and confront the 3 sisters in battle. With the Ursine tribe, and he does achieve victory. So with this victory, he is able to chase off the forces of the 3 sisters, and he's able to land a very a heavily wounding blow, which blinds one of the sisters. Wink, wink, nod, nod.
Wait, dude, that is insensitive. How dare you?
You're right. That was insensitive. All right, I won't. I'll take it back and just tell you, go listen to the Lysandra episode. Oh, Lord. And for Volibear, you know, he's like, I've achieved victory. This is exactly what I wanted. Everything's going up for Millhouse, right? And he hasn't realized at this point that he may have won the battle, but he lost the war. And that war being that no one's really worshiping the old gods anymore, because it is at this point that all the people of the Freljord end up turning to worshiping the 3 sisters. And this is where we get to see worship of the tribes like following Lysandra, Avarosa, and oh god, I'm blanking on the other one. Save me.
Sejuani's tribe, right?
Yeah, Sejuani's tribe, and I'm blanking on the name of that sister.
Oh no!
Go listen to the Sejuani episode, and then get in the like reach out to us in the comments and tell us how dumb we are. So the like now that they're worshiping. Now that they're worshiping the sisters, you know, they're moving away from the wild state of the Freljord. So we're seeing a lot more moving away from nomadic tribes into small villages and towns. We're moving away from hunting and living off the land in a more natural way to domestication of animals and farming. And all of this ends up taking away power from the original demigods. But the one that suffers the most is Volibear, because Volibear was the one trying to hoard it all for the gods themselves. So he's the one that ends up hurting the most. And that is what kind of leads us into the present day of the Freljord, because the Freljord, for the most part, has become a more hospitable land, but there are tribes that are trying to return to the old ways, and we see that with tribes like Sejuani, like that are following more of a raiding and warlike manner, and we are seeing more tribesmen that are taking up the old shaman practices to try to survive in these wars and raids. And the more that they lean into those old magics, the more power that gods like Volibear are able to grab onto. And that's the current state of the Freljord right now, and the end of his bio.
Yep. It's so good. Volibear is he's a great representation, because we talked about the number 3. I made a little reference to it, and having these 3 demigods be kind of the main factors in the Freljord, having the 3 tribes that develop, and also the 3 sisters, and how they kind of move the conflict forward to where we are now. It's great to have a quote unquote villain like Volibear, and to go back to what I referenced when we talked about Sigil of the Storm. That's essentially where we're at, right? He's trying to build that sigil up so that he no longer has to worry about his counterparts and can do his own thing. Because like we know from, videos that we've gotten, like little shorts, as we know from stories when we talked about Ornn doesn't really want to get involved, right? It's almost left to, at this point in history, the humans to deal with the problem. Like Volibear is going to keep stacking.
Hell, Ornn only gets involved when there's craftsmen that show up that's like, look at this, and then he's like, oh, that's actually good. You know what? Yeah. Here, let me give it a little plus, and there you go, on your way. That's literally the only time he gets involved. Where
he grows his followership, his followers organically. He doesn't like no promotion for me.
They follow Ornn in spite of his wishes. But I just always thought, that, because I like the mention that you have of like the world building and everything, but I just assumed that it was because a story is best told in 3 parts.
Oh, this guy.
Wink, wink,
good,
nod, nod.
Hey. He's too good at this. Let's talk about the card.
Dude, this card is crazy. I am in love with it. All right, so it is a 9 mana 10/10. All right. So I think I'm safe in assuming that we can give this big old boy, this Chungus, we can give him the dumpy seal of approval.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, but it feels good. It feels good to pull the seal back out. All right, so he's a 10/10 for 9 mana. On the play, all right, play Relentless Storm 3 times. Each one targets a different random enemy or the enemy nexus if there are none. And then the level up is the level up on this card. At round end, you've dealt 50 plus damage. Oh God, I love this card so much. Like, because if you haven't noticed yet, we've been saying it a lot. At the point where this stuff is becoming relevant, the game's probably over, right? But for what it's worth, the flip side is he becomes an 11/11 with Overwhelm. And now it's on the play or attack. You play Relentless Storm 3 times, and each one targets a different target if there are none. And other allies have Overwhelm. All right. And the Relentless Storm is a triggered ability of his that is deal 4 damage to a unit. If it is dead or gone, deal 2 to the enemy nexus instead. So you're like, if you got to a point where you needed to have him flip to end of the game, you're ending the game. Like, period. There's no, you're not surviving this anymore.
Hedge,
like,
are you sure this card doesn't need a quick attack?
You know what? Let me check something. Let me do some quick math. Okay, yeah, it says type champion. So yes, it does need quick attack. So I do feel like we could at best only give this a 4 out of 5 because of that missing quick attack. No, this does not need quick attack. Are you kidding me? 10. But
Oh man.
yeah, but of course, like, we can't. We're not going to be just talking about only the card. We got flavor, baby. All right. So on the front side, we have a direct quote from Volibear. Kneel to me, mortal, and I may spare you. Your power is feeble, but perhaps worthy enough to serve mine. Kneel or be swept from the earth. Which is very on brand. And then we get to the flip side. And it's another direct quote from Volibear. And before you listen to this quote, pause it real quick and just open the full card art. All right.
Mhm.
All right. And that is the image that you've got for this quote. You dare to insult me with a challenge? Puny girl from lands far away. I am the heart of the tundra. I am the storm. And to you, I promise a forgettable death.
Oh
And
no. That's
like,
once you reveal
dude.
who she is, calling her forgettable is the one thing he should have said.
Dude, okay, so this is a direct quote, all right? And if, for our loyal listeners, because we recorded something just before this is a quote directly to Neela, and the biggest threat that you could give to Neela isn't death. It is being forgotten because Neela won't get out of bed unless it's something that's going to be written in song.
So good. It's great to finally have. It's so much of Runeterra's lore, and as we jump around from champions to champions, it may frustrate you all, but ultimately we leave gaps so that we can fill them in because it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. So knowing that Neela finally gets this fight, where when we talked about Neela in her episode, listen to that, we talk about how she wants to get there. So we'll give you that. You gotta wait a bit though.
It's so good. Yeah, and I mean, and we talked about it a lot as far as our desires to follow that journey on an MMO format, because I would still play the absolute crap out of a side story of trekking from one end of Valorant to the other, so that Neela can fight Volibear, right? And because this is the spirit of this episode, we've been edging you this whole time about that fight of Volibear and Neela.
It's all an edge.
It's all edging, baby. And so now this is a reveal for you, the listener, where it's she gets there, all right, and we're just super stoked to really be diving more into this because these are the stories that that we get excited about. And I'm just so grateful that we have a game like Runeterra that helped bring more of this to life so that we could, dive into it even more, because I know I wanted more when I was first reading it. So it's nice to get more.
And one of the crazy things is, looking at the art, which is very well done as always, she's there alone. And we know that in Runeterra, they gave her a crew. So that even opens up more doors of, oh, fuck. We know what she's willing to sacrifice to get what she wants.
Yeah. And that's a real thing, right? Is does she have to make sacrifices to get what she wants? Or were those just casualties along the way? And what caused the casualties? Because, I mean, if you look at that art, it wouldn't be a surprise if Volibear was the cause of the casualties, but it's a long way from the Serpent Isles to the Freljord. So there's a lot that could have happened in between. And that's why it's, I'll say it again. I'll play that mini quest. I want to even it's too big to be a mini quest. It's got to be a full quest. Bet. Let me play it. Let me play it, Riot.
And we'll leave it there. It's been a lengthy one. And that, we're not gonna stop making masturbation references. Okay, we're gonna keep doing this as long as we can, and that's what she said. And thanks for listening. And we'll be back soon with the next episode.
Oh God. All right, get the ear bleach and take care, everybody.
Oh.